Hello, everyone. It is Mr. Minor, and I am in the lounge. As many of you know, I have been spending lots of time reading Swing by Kwame Alexander and Mary Hess, and this is an amazing book. I've been all over my social media kind of buzzing about it. Now, I don't want to ruin anything for those of you who are still reading it, but my inbox has blown up with people wanting to talk about this book, and so I wanted to make a quick video to kind of walk you through some of the big concepts that I have been grappling with as I have read this book and read it with students. Now, I was really lucky enough to get a chance to work with the amazing team over at Blink Books on the educator guide for Swing. So if you haven't gotten a copy of that educator guide, you can definitely head over to kwamealexander.com/hug life, take the kind of Hug Life pledge, and then download a copy of that guide. I got a chance to work with Sylvia Vardell on it, and it is amazing. It brings up lots of really strong ideas and themes that you might want to bring into your classroom. But I wanted to spend this time with you today talking about a few things. And I was going to set up this video in a really kind of concrete way because there's been so many ideas and comments and issues that have come up as I've read this book with kids. And I want to make sure that I walk through it in a way that leaves you with lots to talk about in your classroom. So I wanted to talk about a specific scene first. And as I go through, I might make even several videos, but I want to start by talking about a specific scene. I wanted to move from talking about that scene to talking about an issue that scene raises. And then finally, I'll move into talking about how we might bring that issue into a classroom. And then we'll look at resources that might support any work that you want to do with students or communities after reading this book or even while going through the experience with your students. So let's start. The one scene that really got me that I think that so many of you have been talking about when you've sent me email or when you've tweeted at me is a scene that really kind of comes together on page 66. And that's the scene where they're beginning to find flags all over the town. And the poem ends with the word America, but there's a question mark there. So it's not America, period. It's America, question mark. And one of the things that I've been thinking lots about is, with so many people recently in the news and in politics, really questioning that idea of what is America. I think it's perfect that question landed in a book that will be in kids' hands this school year. And so one of the things that teachers ask me is, how do we begin to question America in my classroom? Where should a teacher stand on this? And I think it's important to recognize, as we're talking about these issues with kids, is that every experience is valid. For every patriotic, red-blooded American who kind of celebrates the flag and all that it represents, there's an equally patriotic, red-blooded American who has reasons to question the flag because of their experiences. And I think that that's an important thing to bring to our classrooms and begin to talk about. And many of those questions come from our experiences as people of color or as immigrants or as working class people or as women or as disabled people. And so this idea of celebrating America also comes with a responsibility to really begin to question it. And so much of that questioning happens in the book, which is really exciting. And we can bring that very same questioning into our classrooms. Now, I think it's really important as teachers, when we think about all that kids can question, it's important to remember that people who have been made to feel marginalized by the very symbols and traditions that other people celebrate can sometimes have some big, moving beyond questions, can sometimes have some anger or some hostility. And sometimes that anger and hostility comes up in the conversations that we have in our classrooms. And so one of the things that I always think about, and I borrow a lot from my own teaching mentors and my own colleagues, is that everyone has a voice here, everyone has an opinion here, and as such, everyone is respected here. And so it's important to hold on to that as we talk about these issues. And so then the next part so now that I've kind of thought about where I can stand as a teacher, I always think about so how exactly do I open up this conversation? And I think it's important to think about two things. Because school is about critical thinking, I can start this conversation in two specific skills. I can start this conversation by talking about and through the concept of perspective. And then I can start this conversation by talking about or through the concept of empathy. And both of these are really, really powerful strategies that one can bring to anything that we read, not just swing. I also want to do some identity work with kids. I think it's really important to think about the reality that we all have different kind of memberships in social groups. I happen to be a man. I happen to be of African descent, and those memberships dictate the lived reality, especially in a political and geographic space like America. And so that we can begin to talk to kids about their own memberships. Are we immigrants or are we women? And think about the privileges that those memberships afford people, and then also sometimes the struggles that those memberships force us into because of how society is lived. And I think this book gives us a really wonderful opportunity to do some of that work. Now, when we think about doing that work, oh my gosh, there's so many resources that we can use. And so I want to definitely kind of name some of those, because you definitely want to read the book and root many conversations in the text itself, because it is so powerful. But then you can think about looking outside to other resources. I've used a lot from Teaching Tolerance. I've used a lot from the Zen Ed Project. And a lot of those resources are free and available to you online. And they complement the book really powerfully, beginning to talk about, race and class and gender and ability. You can find lots of materials that really draw kids not only into the contemporary, but also into the historical. So as you begin to talk about exactly what Walt goes through, especially when he's beginning to question the symbol of the flag, especially when we're beginning to question the concept of America, we can find a lot of support there. And I guess one powerful way to end this video is to kind of go to my favorite poet who, questions the concept of America. We can even take it back to Langston. In his poem, Let America Be America Again, there's one stanza that really stands out to me. And so it's been really powerful for me to hold that stanza next to all that we read in this book. And I'll end this video with, let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that great, strong land of love, where never kings connive, nor tyrants scheme, that any man can be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. And again, so we have, one of America's greatest poets standing next to, again, two of America's greatest poets now, really beginning to think about what can America be and what has it meant. And so again, this is Mr. Minor talking about Kwame Alexander and Mary Ann Hess's amazing book, Swing. If you haven't downloaded that educator guide, you can definitely get it at kwamealexander.com/huglife. Again, you can take that Hug Life pledge, get a copy of the educator's guide, and I really look forward to continuing our conversation about this book. Thanks. Bye-bye.